Well, hello, friends, and welcome to NC Family's weekly update for the week ending September the 29th. Wow, the end of September, it is upon us. That means October is coming very quickly. So big news this week, of course, is actually the end of last week was the passage of the state budget bill through the House and the state Senate and sent to the governor. We understand that the governor is likely to allow the budget to go into effect without his signature or his veto. So this is big news. Of course, the state budget is about 3 months delayed in getting passed, assuming that you think legislators should enact the budget at the beginning of the state fiscal year, which is July 1st. But there's been a lot, of course, that's happened over the last, 2.5 to 3 months as the budget has been debated, as the House and Senate passed their own versions of the bill and then worked to try to iron out the differences in the conference report to come up with the final version of the budget bill. Of course, as we have been talking about a lot lately, there was a proposal that the legislature would put casino gambling and also video lottery terminals or video poker machines, basically, that would operate under the auspices of the state lottery as part of the budget by God's grace. And fortunately, that was jettisoned and set aside, and the legislature moved forward with what some have referred to as a clean budget. There are a lot of policy provisions and lots of appropriations in this $30 billion budget for this current fiscal year. But fortunately, it did not include a massive gambling expansion proposal that had been bandied about in the legislature for weeks and months even. So very good about that. So the budget bill is House Bill 259. It's 625 pages, just the budget bill, and then there's a corresponding what is referred to as the money report. That's kind of a line item of all the expenditures. That's another, 700 and something pages. So over 1,200 pages in this overall budget bill and the money report that goes along with it. And so we have been spending the last week since the budget came out the middle of last week and was considered by lawmakers. We have spent a lot of time combing through the budget to identify issues of interest and want to share some of that with you today. In fact, we actually sent out a report a couple of days ago that highlights some of this, and that'll be linked to below the video, so please take advantage of that. I think one of the major things, Jerry and Sharon, that we saw, one of the line items, the big line items in the budget bill, was actually following through with appropriations that were made in the big pro-life bill, Senate Bill 20, which is called the Care for Women, Children, and Families Act. The whole interest in that 45-page pro-life bill was not only did we want to move the gestational age in North Carolina, we wanted to move it to heartbeat. Unfortunately, the legislature couldn't muster the votes to do that, right. But it was moved from 20 weeks to 12 weeks gestation for legal abortions, or most legal abortions in North Carolina. But there were a lot of other provisions in that bill and funding for improvements in foster care, maternity homes, adoption services, and things like that in North Carolina. So the budget bill actually made good on those promises and appropriated around $160 million for improvements in those services over the next 2 years. So that was really good. And that bill and these appropriations, in conjunction with Senate Bill 20, really work to honor and protect the lives of unborn babies in North Carolina and serve the needs of women and families who are facing unplanned and crisis pregnancies. So in addition to that, Sharon, I know there were a number of other pro-life provisions that were significant in the budget. Tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, sure. And I want to remind everybody that a lot of times when you ask a woman why she's choosing or did choose abortion, it's because she didn't feel that she had the support that she needed. So part of Senate Bill 20 that was so important to us and the members that did push for this was to make sure that they were giving money and supporting women and families that find themselves in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the budget line items was for the Carolina Pregnancy Care Fellowship. And they are a pro-life organization that take funds and give them out to pregnancy crisis centers across the state to, in this case, buy durable medical equipment. So that would be like ultrasound machines that they use to actually show the women the babies and to make sure they're not ectopic pregnancies and that kind of thing. They'll also use that money to provide training and other vital services that are needed by these families and women. Another pro-life group that we know and are friends with, the Human Coalition, is receiving funds to continue their statewide continuum of care program. And then there's some other things that were put in kind of as provisions, not necessarily budget items, but are of note. And that would include how they're going to spend the money when it comes to abortion. So already right now in the state of North Carolina, state funds are not used to fund abortions, but they've expanded it. And this is a little bit nuanced. So I'm going to read that section of the bill and then explain it briefly. So in the state budget, it says no state funds may be used by a state agency to renew or extend existing contracts or enter into new contracts for the provision of family planning services, pregnancy prevention activities, or adolescent parenting programs with any provider that performs abortions. So basically, they're saying that if a group comes to the state and says, we would like money to provide these services, which may be pro-life services, the state will not be giving them money if they also provide for abortions. And this is basically to make sure that the monies aren't kind of being misappropriated by the group itself.
So it could be a shell game where if they're given money for certain services, then they may divert those funds to pay for abortions.
Right.
And we have a state law that basically says no state taxpayer dollars can be used to pay directly for abortions. This kind of addresses an indirect use of state funds potentially for abortion, which the legislature, in their wisdom, wanted to rule out. So,
right.
A very significant and important expansion of that existing provision in the law.
Exactly.
Yeah, good.
And these are obviously, as you say, positive developments in the midst of, quite honestly, just to repeat, the disappointment, because we did all want to protect children beginning at the conception or fertilization all through life. We thought 6 weeks heartbeat was where people would meet, and sadly it went beyond that. But all these other positive developments did come into not, in the planning and now actually into law. So,
right.
Well, and I think the cumulative effect of all of these provisions that the General Assembly has passed, some of which were enacted over the veto of the governor, these are really, really significant cumulatively and are going to have a very great, very positive effect in our state. Again, in a way that really honors and cherishes these unborn human lives, but also seeks to care for women and families that are facing unplanned or crisis pregnancies, so that they are given every reason to choose life as opposed to choose abortion in the state. So, yeah. Well, Sharon and Jerry, thanks for that. Jerry, I know that the legislature also in the budget bill made some significant changes in the education front. Tell us about that.
Right. Well, it was, as you say, it's tremendous. I'm trying to think of the right word, but that's one
monumental
expansion of school choice through the Opportunity Scholarship Program. That now, initially it started with lower income families being eligible. Now, literally, every family, every child in the state is eligible. Now, there are not unlimited funds there, but what they're going to now do is for the lower income families, they will receive, if they apply and are awarded scholarships, 100% of the public school per pupil spending. For as the income level goes up, they can also apply at higher income levels, but it's a sliding scale where the amount of the scholarship will be less. So that is a big improvement as far as families who feel like it's another option, a better option for their child, even though there are a lot of wonderful public schools, that if a private school is what they feel like would be a better fit, this option is available. The overall of funding that's available is also going up. In the next 2 years, it's going to double to over $400 million, and then over 6 more years, get up to $500 million.
For opportunity scholarships.
For opportunity scholarships,
yep.
The total fund that will be available to offer these scholarships to students across the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. So a significant, huge expansion. Some would refer to this as a universal school choice program, which it is universal in eligibility so that all children in the state can apply for and potentially take advantage of it. But the funding, as you said, Jerry, may not fully be there. But the legislature, again, in its wisdom, has funded the Opportunity Scholarship Program at increasing levels for 8 years in the future. And so that's really exciting. And more and more and more of our students in North Carolina are going to be able to take advantage of this in future years. So that's just a great move, and it really propels North Carolina. We've already been one of the leading states in school choice across the country, but this really propels us as to one of the top states in the nation for school choice.
And honestly, even in sitting in on some of the committee meetings for that, all kinds of people showed up in favor of this for their children. And it helps with the parental rights where you get to decide how you're going to educate your child, whether it's going to be a religious school or just a private school, whether you choose public school, one for one kid, one for another. It just allows us as parents to be able to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Jerry, a couple other provisions?
Yeah, there were just two other items to mention that were in the budget. One of them at UNC Chapel Hill, they're going to start a school of civic life and leadership, which they describe as offering to students opportunity for development, and this is, I like this language that they have in the bill, development of democratic competencies informed by American history and the American political tradition with the purpose of fostering public discourse and civil engagement, and it goes on from there. But I thought about how local, state, and federal government, unfortunately, we're not seeing the civil engagement, public discourse in the way that it need, we all, I think, agree it needs to be happening. And we can all, unfortunately, contribute to it not happening. And this is where, hopefully, this is going to be part of the next generation learning how government should work and then how they will be engaged as they grow older and have that opportunity to be involved in government at all levels. So that's an encouraging note. Another one, too, as far as homeschool students, just to mention this, they now have an opportunity to sit for advanced placement and PSAT exams at public schools. So it's interesting, the budget is primarily monetary items for the state, but it does include some policy issues as well. And these are two other examples relating to education.
Well, it's 625 pages. The budget bill is going to probably contain a lot of different policy changes, which it did. These, we wanted to highlight for you some of the things that jumped out at us as we were reviewing the budget. Of course, there's a whole lot more in there. If you want to peruse it yourself, you can go to the General Assembly website at ncleg.gov. So ncleg.gov. Search for House Bill House Bill 259, which is the budget bill. There's also on the main page, kind of up in the top right-hand corner, there's a thing that says budget bill, and you can click on that and get access not only to the 625-page bill, but also the corresponding money report, and read to your heart's content. But again, these were some of the things that jumped out to us. One other thing I'll mention, because we talked so much about gambling proposals and things this year, there was a provision in the budget. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the State Lottery Commission approved what is referred to as digital instants, or basically online scratch-off tickets or simulations of video poker and other gambling games that you could play online through the state lottery. Well, apparently their approval of digital instants didn't sit entirely well with the General Assembly, and so there was a provision in the budget bill that restricts the types of games or online simulations that the Lottery Commission can approve for operation. And I will say it basically says it prohibits the Lottery Commission from utilizing digital simulations of, quote, casino-style table games. So they can't have simulations on there of like blackjack, poker, craps, roulette, those types of things. So it is somewhat restrictive in what the Lottery Commission can approve with respect to digital instants. So not a huge improvement, but at least some regulation and restriction of that. So that was kind of interesting to see in the budget when there was so much discussion going on about commercial gambling casinos and video lottery terminals and all this sort of stuff. So lots of other interesting provisions in the budget. Help yourself. Go look for House Bill 259, dig through it. Feel free to call and contact the Family Policy Council through our website. There's a link on our website where you can send us a message. If you have items that you have questions about or things that we can help with, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's why we're here. And I'll just say, Jerry and Sharon, thank you for your continued commitment to espousing biblical principles, God's truth in the policy arena, but also just investing in reviewing the budget bill and all these other bills and spending time investing in relationships with legislators down at the General Assembly. Because as we have seen this year, as we are able to engage collectively with you all, with your support, your prayers, with your financial support and your involvement, we really can make a difference. It's exciting to see some of the really positive things that were included in this budget bill, and the fact that we actually got a budget bill approved. And the General Assembly is expecting that bill is going to be, before the end of next week, enacted into law if the governor doesn't veto it. So it'll go into effect without his signature, and that's kind of what we're assuming, again, is going to happen. But a big hurdle that needed to be cleared for the rest of the session to wind down. Of course, the legislature now is looking at redistricting, redrawing congressional and House and Senate district maps. So that process is really going to get underway in about a week and a half. So that's going to be interesting and kind of prolong the session. There's still a number of other bills in the hopper, and we will be down there working with our lawmakers and also helping to keep you informed. So if there are other issues that come up that require your involvement, we will certainly let you know. So stay posted, keep your eyes and ears open for additional emails from the Family Policy Council. And until next Friday, Jerry, Sharon, thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Friends, thank you so much for your continued prayers and support. God bless you.